The American crack epidemic in 3 parts. Part 1. From cocaine to crack. In the 1980s, most of the cocaine coming to America was made in the Bahamas and the Dominican Republic, where supply was exceeding demand. The resulting surplus led to prices falling by up to 80%, meaning a more valuable drug was needed. Dealers in Los Angeles and Oakland converted their cocaine, which in powder form you snort, into crack, which you smoke. That means it doesn't need to be powdered, so it can be broken up and sold to more people in smaller quantities as rocks. That made it easier to buy and sell quickly and anonymously, so crack, which also provided a shorter, more intense high than cocaine, quickly became popular. So drug dealers across the US started converting the cocaine they received from cartels and other manufacturers into crack. From 1985 to 6, the DEA found at least 35 conversion labs, from New York to California to Florida. In 1981, crack was available in LA, San Diego, and Houston. By 1987, it was available in all but 4 states. However, crack wasn't seen as an issue until after 1983, when it arrived in New York and quickly spread to its less affluent neighborhoods. Before then, it was only really used in Miami by middle-class users. Perhaps the authorities before 1983 didn't think crack was going to spread enough to be an issue, or maybe they were just willing to look the other way for middle-class users, but not for poorer users. Part 2. Enforcement. In 1986, Congress passed laws that made crack-related crimes carry prison sentences 100 times harsher than cocaine-related crimes. For example, possession of 5 grams of crack carried a mandatory minimum prison sentence of 5 years. The same mandatory minimum sentence for carrying 500 grams of cocaine. Now, proponents of these laws argued it was important to come down hard on crack because it was the crack epidemic, not the cocaine epidemic. But opponents argue that it only really came down harsh on black people, because mandatory minimum sentences carry little or no deterrent for a crime, and blacks were way more likely to use crack than cocaine. Meanwhile, the DEA tried to deal with the epidemic by coming after the sources of cocaine that were coming into the US to be turned into crack domestically. These sources were usually cartels, such as the Medellin cartel of Narcos fame, and the smaller but still significant Cali cartel, which mainly exported to the northeast of America. Operation Snowcap began in 1987, sending DEA and International Narcotics Matters agents into 12 countries to try and put a stop to cocaine manufacturers. 53 metric tons of cocaine were seized, 7,000 arrests were made, and the operation concluded in 1990. Although its opponents argue it only really served to distribute control of trafficking away from large cartels to smaller Mexican cartels, because it was only the larger cartels the operation focused on. These cartels had already become more powerful after 1989, when Colombian cartels started paying them in cocaine, not cash, to traffic drugs from Mexico to America. Part 3. The end. Pinpointing the end of an epidemic is always tricky. A disease epidemic is only over when there are 0 cases of that disease in a given area, but there are still plenty of cases of people using crack in America today. One estimate puts the number of Americans aged over 12 who have tried crack at least once at 6 million. What has died down, though, is the old side effects of crack, namely gang violence. This is because as gang territory has become better defined, gangs no longer feel a need to fight for it and defend it as viciously. Anecdotally, crack has also become less fashionable. The main users of the drug have aged since the 1980s, and people who are in their teens and 20s today, who are the main users of drugs overall, could have grown up with crack addicts for parents and so are less likely to go near the drug now. 36% of men aged over 36 arrested in New York have tried crack, compared to just 4% of those aged 15 to 20.
These figures come from a New York Times article written way back in 1999. So maybe take this with a pinch of salt.
There are also other drugs that are becoming more popular, namely opioids. In 2015, 2/3 of American drug overdose deaths were caused by opioids, mainly ones commonly prescribed. Donald Trump has promised $500 million to deal with opioid addiction, So it seems that the crack epidemic never really ended as much as the opioid epidemic began. And that's it. Thank you so much for watching it. Car goes by. Thank you very much for watching it. Seriously, it gives me so much purpose, and it feels really nice to be supported by you guys. Okay, bye-bye. See you next week or like in 2 years.